On this International Yoga Day, we have a special guest with us to speak about Ayurvedic yoga. Let me introduce my special guest to you. She is Namita Piparaiya. She is a yoga and Ayurveda lifestyle specialist who's been a former corporate executive, worked with banking sector with companies like Citibank. She worked with Future Generali, and she also worked with Aviva before she realized and found her passion in yoga. She has over 700 hours of certified training in Hatha Yoga and also has studied pranayama, yoga philosophy, Ayurveda, and the Indian scriptures from reputed institutions and teachers. She brings together all her experience to build the connection between the mind, the body, and one's inherent constitution and nature. Welcome, Namita.
Thank you so much, Harvinder, for that introduction. Very happy to be here and looking forward to our conversation on yoga.
Yes. So, Namita, let us first begin with trying to understand your story. You had a corporate job. You moved to teaching yoga.
Yeah.
What transitioned inside of you to take this step? What inspired you to take this move?
I actually remember that exact moment when the decision or the feeling came to me that I need to move out of the corporate sector and into something I really want to do. And that happened when I was offered a promotion in my last job. So I had been working with, organizations like Citibank, Aviva, Future Generali. It had been going well, but now I needed to upscale my career, and I was offered a nice leadership position to head the online business of Future Generali, online insurance. And I think that was the moment of truth for me, because not taking it up would mean what am I doing with my career, and taking it up would mean that I actually have to give up a lot more time and take on a lot more responsibility, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for that. And I think in that moment I realized if I have to put in all that effort, I have to put in that energy, it should be towards something I am personally passionate about. And that's when I decided I need to venture out on my own, and Yofanama came as a result of that. So that was the moment of truth for me.
Awesome. But a lot of people move from their corporate roles, corporate lifestyle, and follow their passion. They quit everything.
Yeah.
And then they realize that, turning passion into profession needs a lot of fuel. What has been your experience and how have you managed it?
Like the saying goes, when I was working in this corporate sector, I used to work 5-6 days a week. Now I work 24/7. I think you don't estimate the amount of work, effort, and stress that is going to come along with being an entrepreneur. But I think the good thing is it's the kind of stress you enjoy. It's something your passion can sustain you, but it isn't without challenges. Sometimes you think the stress is only in the corporate sector. Entrepreneurs have their own stresses, their own highs and lows, their own second guessing. And, you have to build a team. You have a lot more responsibility. So I wouldn't say that I thought it would be, that is actually, it's a good question you ask, because you think it's going to be all rosy, but it has its challenges. I think the only difference is you have your passion and it's something you look forward to. But yes, it isn't a rosy picture as often people think, that you quit your job and life is great after that.
Are you happy you took this move?
Yes, absolutely. Not a second of regret though. But within this, yes, you have your ups and downs. You have your phases. But I have never once regretted giving up the corporate life, because this is something you enjoy.
So, in fact, do you think that your experience in the corporate world actually helps you in organizing your passion much better?
Yes. Absolutely. And I think that's important, because the professionalism, the way how you work with teams, how you interact with various departments, or how I interact with HR or various organizations today, all of that comes from my background in banking and financial services. There's a structure. I do my own goal setting. I track my finances. All these things were familiar to me. And how organizations work. And I think that has been brilliant. So I wouldn't trade that for anything else.
So, Namita, coming to yoga, now we've heard of various forms of yoga. Can you tell me what is Ayurvedic yoga?
Yeah. So before that, I'll briefly touch upon Ayurveda and what I look at Ayurveda, and then how I connect it to yoga. So Ayurveda for me is a system that helps you assess your personality, your style, your nature. And the concept of Ayurveda is that everybody has a unique personality, a prakriti, a vata, pitta, or kapha, or a mixture of those. And basis that they adjust to their environment, basis that they get prescription for diet, for a lifestyle. So everybody gets something unique. And the same thing can be applied to yoga. If you can give somebody a particular herb for a ailment because of their personality, you can give them a prescription for yoga as per their personality. And then you can also customize your yoga practices as per seasons. If, let's say, I'm taking a group class and I am in the peak of summer season, I will not include some heating practices like Agni Sara Kriya. But if I am in the spring season, then I may include more detoxing practices of yoga and Ayurveda like Kapalbhati or Vinyasa style yoga. So these are ways that you can bring some structure, right? Because there are hundreds of yoga postures, especially in the modern interpretation of yoga. And how do you choose? If I have a private student who comes to me for a class with the issue, how do I choose which postures to give to that person? So I make them take an Ayurvedic assessment. I understand which energies are dominant and which are not, and then accordingly create a practice for them, which is highly customized. And I think that's the power of yoga and Ayurveda combined together. It's not a one size fits all approach.
Which means that, everyone who may be having a similar condition that they're dealing with, they still have a very different style of exercise or yoga or practice that they'll need to do.
Yes, because it's intuitive, right? Everybody feels different. Some people in the pandemic were exercising a lot. Some people were feeling fatigued and they weren't finding the energy. We were all experiencing the pandemic in different ways. So someone who's going through fatigue will get a different prescription. I will not ask them to do Vinyasa yoga. I will first work on building their energy levels and improving their mood through more restorative yoga practices. So that's how it works out.
Since you mentioned pandemic, do you think that people, when they were sitting at home, they were dealing with a lot of, this is the first time when, there was more like a mental fatigue that they went through. They went through various emotions, grief, etc. Also, they realized that there was this whole conversation around immunity, etc. Do you think this has changed their perspective to their own health, both physical and mental? What has changed? Has this led to more acceptance of yoga and such kind of practices?
Yes, I think definitely, and particularly when we talk about mental health, especially in India, mental health was always a taboo. You were practicing yoga, if at all, it was for fitness. It was to get stronger core or do complicated postures. Nobody associated all of this with immunity and mental health and all the burnout and stress that people were experiencing. But I think pandemic crushed all of us and we all needed an outlet, and yoga came as that outlet because it's easy. You can do it out of your home, you can do it on a screen, you can have your instructor on Zoom and take you through a very nice and relaxing session or an energizing one depending on what your needs are. So the talk about mental health, the awareness of yoga for mental health has increased. And a lot of my students, because most of the teachers moved to teaching online, would request, can you do that restorative session? Can you do that relaxing session? No more requests were coming for weight loss yoga. I was getting more requests for relaxing yoga because everybody was feeling very stressed. So there's been a shift, and I think it's a much needed shift.
Pandemic got over, the era or the phase of the lockdown got over, people are coming back to work. What has changed in the corporate world where there is more acceptance of corporate wellness programs? And I see that you are aligning yourself to offering corporate sessions.
Yes.
So can you tell us what has changed, why this acceptance, and what is it that you are doing?
I think there are two things that have happened, right? The pandemic, the work from home environment, HR and organizations have realized that productivity is strongly linked to people's mental health. And the pandemic has changed behavior. People have experienced what it's like working from home. They have realized they don't need to be present in the offices as much. So there is this great resignation happening because people realize they want more out of life. And I think organizations, especially with the Gen Z, which is more sensitive to mental health, need to realize they need to create an environment which will attract employees, which will attract more quality employees. And I think there was this Will Stower Watson survey which happened last year where they said almost 80% of organizations now want to differentiate themselves basis their corporate wellness programs, and organizations are stepping up. Uber, I think, has just launched one. I think we are having more and more organizations have therapists on premises. They are investing in building yoga wellness programs. And I think one e-commerce platform I read actually gave their employees 10 days off in November last year to just reset and recharge. It was called Reset and Recharge. And this is new upcoming startups. So that's there. The adaptability is there. And I think the decision employees will make of whether or not to join a company will depend significantly on what kind of environment, how conducive it is, how welcoming it is, and yeah, so how productive it is for them.
You touched upon a very beautiful aspect that companies are now becoming sensitive to the health, both physical and mental, of their employees.
Yeah.
And there's been that push towards creating a break in the office, encouraging people to go for an exercise or maybe a meditation or something like a yoga practice.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this? And what is it that you feel should be done? And why should HR, what's in it for the organization, that it's okay for them to allow time being spent on this rather than on the work?
Because I think it's a matter of productivity. Your employees will not be productive. There are increasing cases of burnout. People are taking, there's increasing cases of resignation. I think if you want to retain employees, even from a cost perspective, and I think in the US, a lot of this research has been done, wherein the return that comes from a corporate wellness initiative is far greater, because otherwise you suffer in terms of medical leave or absenteeism or burnout or lower productivity. So I think as far as the financial aspect for a company or an HR is concerned, that has been proven. Now it is more about how will they go about increasing adaptability? How will they go about actually making a program that employees will do? Because a lot of time initiatives are launched, but nobody does. And that has to, I think, if you really want a very effective corporate wellness program, you have to get the leadership team to take charge. You have to get the C-suite executives to actually actively participate for the employees to find that trend, to find that momentum. And secondly, it is not very resource or time intensive. You can sit and do a 5-minute breathing technique, and breath is a very, very powerful and effective way to transform your nervous system. It's very quick, and that doesn't cost HR much. The employee can just sit. They don't need to create a room. It's good if they do. I think it'll be good to have a room for yoga, but even so, there are these small techniques. Mindfulness, the Buddhist practices 3 times a day for 3 minutes, be mindful. It doesn't take much. I mean, HR will spare that much time. They won't even know. So there are techniques which are not time or resource or money intensive, and which is what makes yoga so lucrative. It weaves in comfortably into your everyday routine, work-wise or personal life.
Yeah, absolutely right. Because I know an organization that has introduced, 1 minute break thrice in a day, where they shut down everything. And they have this chant which goes on, and they ask people to just close their eyes and be in silence for 1 minute.
I love that.
and this is a factory, so it's like you're not talking of white collar jobs in it, but it is. They feel that a lot has changed.
Oh, that's
yeah. So what I want to ask you, Namitha, is that yoga originated in India. It was started in India and then has traveled across the globe in its various forms, various innovations that have been done by various people, and different forms of yoga have been there. Now, what has changed to make yoga more relevant and relatable to people? What has been the acceptability globally? And what I really want to also ask, once you've answered this, is that is it only after it has become fashionable outside India that the younger generation in India is willing to accept it?
Yeah, that's I know there's both good and bad sides to it, and I'll answer the first part of it. Is that yes, by the time it was the foreign interest, it was the interest from overseas that actually made yoga more popular again, not just abroad but also in India, because a lot of these teachers which were involved earlier, which was BK Sanger or Patadi Joyce, they were, as from what I hear of the stories, were living in poverty till their students came from US, and then they got interested, and then both the schools started doing well. So, and the adage goes that people wouldn't practice yoga in India because it was for sadhus or for people who would live in the jungles. So that's the narrative that goes. People were practicing, but not at the scale and not in the style that is being done today. So yes, the Western interests brought yoga back into the limelight to a certain degree. But what it also did was it diluted yoga, because the Western interest was primarily fitness and body oriented, because that's the culture. Whereas the subtle subtle aspects, which is more Asian aspects, right? Whether it is yoga or Tai Chi or yin and yang, the concept of prana, the concept of meditation, of breath work wasn't taken up as easily. So we have yoga and many varieties of yoga because they focus on the physical body. They focus a lot on fitness. Traditional yoga was not as much about fitness as it was about wellness and more focused on mental health. So the good part is it got yoga into the limelight. The part that we need to work upon is to redefine yoga as what it actually was. And that's where I think can only happen when people come from that culture. It will come from India. It will come from people who understand prana and don't think it's some weird thing that they don't want to talk about. It's people who understand the concepts of Ayurveda. So yes, there is interest, but because of their interest, now people are learning more. So when I went to my yoga teacher training, and I'll be honest, I had this very complicated pose, which I said I want to achieve by the time I'm done. So that was my goal. It was physically oriented because that's what yoga means to you, right? Till you get exposed. So when I go for my teacher training, there is a wonderful Sanskrit professor who comes and teaches us Yoga Sutras. I fell in love with the Yoga Sutras. So that exposure happened to me only because yoga was popular as a physical practice, but it led me to something deeper. And then you start studying and investigating more. So I think that brings it to a nice closure that I, more than whether in yoga will pick up in India or not, I think it's the responsibility of people from India to bring that definition back up, to promote pranayama and breathwork and meditation and not yoga as just an asana or fitness practice.
I think our government has taken that initiative, and just having the International Yoga Day has brought yoga to the limelight. I mean, the fact that we are sitting here having a conversation is because yoga is important today.
Yeah, we should acknowledge that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, Namitha, what happens is that you and I both have been with the corporate world.
Yeah.
And one of the most common excuse that we have is that you don't have time. And, and sometimes it's genuinely there because you get up in the morning, you've got your course to do, and then you go to office. And in India, we have long working hours before you come back. So how and what should be done to inculcate the practice of yoga as a part of a lifestyle for people? What is it that you want to tell them that they could do?
Number one thing is, I think we need to take a longer term view of time. You may not have time today. You can think of, I don't have time today. But really what's going to happen if you don't take care of our physical and mental health, we will have lesser and lesser time. We'll be less and less productive. We will fall sick often. We will have lower immunity. We may develop metabolic disorders. India is having a huge issue with that in terms of diabetes and cardiovascular health. So where's the time? That 15 minutes a day, even if you can spare that much, is going to add time to your life. It's going to add time by way of productivity. So when you think of long term, you realize you actually, in a way, create more time for yourself because you're healthier, you're alert, and all of these things come from yoga. And now, in a very practical sense, right? Because yes, let's empathize that people don't have time, and that's when I come back. There are two ways you can split yoga. One is the physical practice, and one is the subtle mindfulness practices, which take a lot lesser time. You may need to give at least 20, 25, or 30 minutes for a yoga asana practice for it to be meaningful. But you can do pranayama in 5 minutes. You can do meditation for 5 minutes. Like you shared, 1 minute break itself can be so rejuvenating. If you just stop doing everything right now for 3 minutes, just put an alarm if you need to, and just become mindful where you are. How am I sitting? What do I feel in my fingers? How am I breathing? Just really centering yourself in your body. That has a powerful impact. And it's not hearsay, right? Because now science has studied mindfulness to great extent, and everybody's raving about it. So it helps. And you can do it 5 minutes before lunch. You can do it 5 minutes before dinner. You can do it before your presentation. You're getting worked up and anxious. You're having stage fright. Do deep belly breathing. It's incredible how it balances your breath and allows you to go talk in front of 10 people. So there are all these things which help, and they don't take a lot of time.
What is this deep belly breathing?
Yeah. So deep belly breathing, also called diaphragmatic breathing, is the most foundational pranayama breathing practice. It's also called Adham Pranayam. So what you do is it's a way of correcting your breathing pattern. What often happens is people, when they breathe, they tend to breathe into the chest, or they're not fully breathing properly. In deep belly breathing, you understand that when you're breathing in, your chest or your navel expands, your belly expands. And as you exhale, you pull that back in. if you're very new to this practice, you can keep your hands, around the lower ribs, and then you can feel the expansion of the belly and the contraction of the belly. So that itself, and deep diaphragmatic breathing is very, very relaxing, because it stimulates what we call the parasympathetic nervous system, or the vagus nerve, because it has even 5 to 10 breaths can really help you calm down and reset your nervous system. So simple practice and very effective.
What is Yoga Nidra?
Yes. Yoga Nidra is a form of guided meditation. I think it was made popular by Bihar School of Yoga. It's a form of Tantra. What you do is, it's amazing, and I think perfect for corporate executives. You lie down in Shavasana, wherever on your mat, on a bed, and you just have to listen to some instructions. Now, those instructions are focused on first bringing you into the practice, turning you inwards. Then they focus on various body parts. Then it moves to certain visualizations, which are specifically designed to activate different areas of the brain alternatively. And then you are, and there is another aspect, is an intention. Miss that in Yoga Nidra. You begin and end with that intention. So it's a way to fully relax your body. It's a way of deep, deep relaxation without actually going to sleep. So that moment where you're just about to fall asleep, that's the state of Yoga Nidra. And that's what it helps you maintain. And that helps you become more creative, more relaxed, and generally reduce the stress levels in the body. It also improves your memory. So one of the few proven aspects. So that's Yoga Nidra.
Awesome. So Namitha, we are all living stressful lifestyle. I mean, it has become a part of us now. Yeah. There is chaos that is triggered by competition, stiff targets, timelines and deadlines to be met. Yeah. Are there any visualization techniques to calm our mind?
Yes, there are many different, and visualization is a very free, creative aspect. You can actually create your own visualization methods, but I'll share a couple here. I think one is the body scan, wherein you mentally scan the body. So you pretend as if you're going from your big toe to your knees, to your hips, all the way to the top of the head. And in order to make it more relaxing, you can think of a color. You can think of a soothing color like light blue or light green, can be your personal preference. And think you're taking a very soft paintbrush and painting the body with that color. And that is progressively increasingly relaxing. You can do it in 5 to 10 minutes as well. And you can do it by yourself, unlike Yoga Nidra, which is always better when guided by someone else. So that's one. And, a lot of times people are going through a lot of anxiety, health related or family related anxiety. For that, there is a beautiful guided visualization, not guided, which is called floating leaves visualization. You process the thoughts that are bothering you, take them one at a time, put them on a leaf and let the leaf flow down the river, go away from you. And you do that with each thought that bothers you. So that has a very soothing impact. Another one which is good for alertness and cognitive skills is a form of Tratak, wherein you visualize a flame at the eyebrow center. So this activates your executive functions of the brain. That's also very powerful. There's some.
Now, when you're talking of all this, and when you're speaking to the corporate executives, corporate leaders,
yeah.
Have you faced a pushback saying that, ये पता नहीं क्या बात कर रहे हैं, समझ नहीं आ रहा? So how do you manage that?
No, I actually will not go and talk about esoteric stuff with the corporates in the beginning. So you have to make sure that it is palatable to them. And there's a lot of research to back. So I use scientific research very actively. There are a lot of people who have done PhDs, people from India on this subject, and you have all those references. So when you come with that, I think for a reasoning, very analytical, practical corporate mind, it's more appealing. So I may not use the word Tratak, but I may say NSDR techniques, which is something which has become very popular. NSDR is non-sleep deep rest, but actually it is Yoga Nidra and guided visualizations. So you find your ways and means around that.
So Namitha, I mean, we are all leading stressful life.
Yeah.
And you go to a doctor and you have a hypertension, he tells you, stress mat liya karo. You have a cardiac problem, they say stress mat liya karo. Yeah. Women are facing a lot of fertility issues. Yeah, and the infertility experts say that 40% of this is because of the stress. Now, how does one get over stress?
Yes, that's true. And you get over stress by making time for relaxation, just like you do weight loss by making time for exercise or eating well. So stress is a phenomena which needs to be counterbalanced. You will stress yourself. We stress ourselves when we are studying, when we go for a run or anything else. So how do you consciously make time to relax? And there are many different ways. You could go for a walk in the nature, you can practice yoga stretches, you can do breathing, you can do meditation. It is now essential that we find at least one mindfulness activity and make it a part of our lifestyle, because otherwise these stress related diseases will catch up with all of us. And like you said, during the pandemic, there has been more awareness and acceptance of that, because people have realized that mental stress is a real thing. So hopefully that's changing, because I'm seeing a lot more interest coming in meditation, in pranayam than before. So you have to consciously make time. There is no other option.
Is meditation separate from yoga, or is it a part of yoga?
It's a part of yoga. Actually, when you say yoga, there are three things. There is asana, there is pranayam, there is dhyan. So you have postures, you have breathing, you have meditation. It's the combination of three. These are the three pillars. So which is why when we talk about the West, they have taken one pillar, really played upon it, but the other two pillars have been ignored. And one thing I really do with Yoganama, and I repeat this message often, do all three. It doesn't matter. Do all three, even if for 5 minutes, because it isn't yoga unless you bring the other two pillars in. Then you could just do any other fitness exercise. Then there's no difference between a gymnast and a yoga practitioner. Both are very flexible. Where is the mindfulness? So that, I think, is something we need to repeat and send the message out over and over again.
Today's lifestyles are leading to people feeling drained out. By the time you're coming back, and people living in Delhi and all are because of the weather also, by the time they come back in the evening, they're like drained out, and they feel that अब तो हिम्मत ही नहीं है.
Yeah.
Do you think that yoga or doing this yoga practice can help people overcome this and help them recharge their body and mind? And what are the few techniques that you recommend that could help them do that?
One of the first earliest research on yoga found that yoga actually helped improve people's mood, energy levels, their self-confidence, their quality of life. This was a research which compared people doing aerobics to people doing yoga. And they did find that, cardiovascular, VO2 max, etc. was better for people who did aerobics than who did yoga. But the people who were focusing on yoga had all these other benefits: more energy, less fatigue, more self-confidence, better body image, better relationships, and a positive outlook to life. Now that's not quantifiable. You can't have a metric and say VO2 max increased from here to there, so quality of life went from here to there. So if people would just incorporate yoga, which is your asana, pranayama, meditation, at least 3 to 5 times a week, they would notice that difference in their life. And I think that's what matters, right? We have to be able to enjoy our life. And for some reason, which isn't fully identified, yoga creates that state of mind. It creates a very vivacious, or not vivacious, but a more vibrant state of mind. And why not experience that when all it needs is a combination of three pillars?
So Namitha, this is a very unplanned question, because what helps, what comes to my mind is when I look at the older generation. We look at our parents and all. They had that more of contentment. They had that inner joy and happiness. There were more smiles than what we see today. What has changed, and what is it that yoga can contribute to making a happier and joyful people around us?
The signal was breaking, but I think I'll just repeat your question. You were comparing that older generation. Our parents were far more content and happy compared to us. And I think number one reason is the digital age, the technology, everything we used to instant gratification. We have lesser patience. We hardly had time to ourselves. Because once the mobile phones and the BlackBerry started coming in, you were always connected. When I was a child, you would have summer vacations, you'd be getting bored. What do I do? Okay, what do I do? Now, I don't think kids get bored. They always have their iPad. So that, I think, has created a major shift in how we interact with our environment or how we are acting out. And that's the difference between the older and the current generation. And again, yoga will help you with that, because yoga helps with de-addiction. It helps with improving mindfulness. It even helps people make better eating choices. Once you become more self-aware, all of these addictions start going out of your frame of reference. And it happens very naturally because you're more tuned in, you're more present, you notice yourself overdoing something. So that, I hope that answers your question.
But yeah, it does. But you know what, how do you explain yoga to a child because these guys are getting consumed by the technology. I mean, you very rightly said that, they don't have free time, because anytime that they have free, they have their mobile or a laptop open with them.
That I think is a problem entire society will have to at some point address, because this generation will grow up and will be so used to technology that being without doing anything or just sitting and doing nothing will not be something that they're comfortable with. So again, the onus comes more to parents, because kids learn from parents. If as a family you create a time where there are going to be no digital devices, you're having dinner, nobody has their phone on the table, that is how a child will get trained, not necessarily by sending them to a yoga class if at home all the time everybody's using devices. So it's a collective societal responsibility as to what we can do about that, because children will learn from parents and their environment.
Got it. So, Namitha, how can one improve and enhance cognitive health with yoga and breath management?
So when it comes to cognitive skills, we are going to focus more on meditation. When it comes to nervous system relaxation, we focus on pranayama. And when it comes to bodily work, we focus on asana. And that's the progression. Before you can get to meditation, you have to calm down the body. You stretch, you release tension from the muscles. Then you have to calm down the nervous system. Only then can you actually meditate. A very anxious, agitated person cannot focus and concentrate. So we gradually, for cognitive skills, we do the asana, we do the pranayama, we come to meditation. That is one of the most effective ways to actually recharge your rewire your brain, because we know that meditation helps make us more rational. Meditation helps with emotional regulation. People are more resilient towards pain, so regular meditators actually feel less pain than people who don't. And it creates those feel good hormones. You get better sleep, you are able to concentrate better, because one of the fundamentals of meditation is to learn to focus. You start with the breath or an object of meditation, and repeatedly doing that helps you stay more focused while you're working. You're less distracted. Coming back to the technology age where we're constantly distracted by notifications and mobile phones, you learn to resist that, which is a huge addiction, right? Every morning we start our day with our phones. And there is something within these practices of yoga that can actually help you disconnect from those habits, which may not happen by just putting an intention out there, I will change. You may not, but with yoga, you may actually change those habits.
Right. So Namitha, when we were talking of screens, and the second thing is that a lot of us have started working from home.
Yeah.
So there's a lack of physical exercise or physical movement that is there, and most of us are, because instead of going out and meeting people, we are on Zoom right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So which means we are spending a lot of time on our desks.
Yeah.
And this has created a lot of back problems, posture related issues. Yeah. Can you touch upon them? What is it that people can do that despite these challenges, they still are able to maintain their postures?
I think before I get into the topic, just a quick demystifying or busting a myth about posture is people often think that if there is some postures are good and some postures are bad, that if you slouch it is really bad, if you sit upright it is really good. I think a lot of recent knowledge has told us that's not the case. If you really want to not have posture issues, there is just one and one solution. You have to move. Any posture which is sustained for a period of time, for more than an hour, is going to create a problem. Whether you're sitting upright, whether you slouched, whether you're standing. So people have to make it a habit to move, even if it's fidgeting, even if it's just getting off the chair and then sitting back down. You create some movement, take a round and sit back. That is the only, fully simplified, that is the only thing you need to do. Now, the next thing, there is a physical aspect to the posture as well. And there are certain stretches that can be very, very helpful for people to release tension, because you've been sitting in a certain way and you can release that tension by doing certain stretches. So that's the second aspect. Would you like me to share some stretches for people who...
Yeah, so my next question is, since you are going to demonstrate, I want to ask my next question, and you can then do both the things together. Yeah. So my next question is that, specifically for women, our Indian corporate world has seen a lot of women coming in, and they're having equally hectic schedules as men. Yeah. Right. But they also willingly or unwillingly take on the responsibility of working at home. So they have even lesser time. But what can be that 5-minute yoga regime that you recommend for them to make it as a part of their routine, a part of their lifestyle? So if you could demonstrate that as well.
All right, let's get into it. So I'm going to just push back my chair so I can show you the postures that we will do. So one of the most important things when you've been sitting in front of the computer is your shoulders and upper back. And here's a very good stretch that you can do on the chair itself. You place your hands on the chair, make sure your palms are facing each other, and you just step back. You step back till such time your spine comes parallel to the floor. Even if that doesn't happen, come only as far as you feel the stretch along the lats and the shoulders. So this is extremely relaxing. It helps you give a good stretch to the shoulders. It counters the slouching. The slouching that we have, it helps you sort of counterbalance that. To make it a little bit more accessible, you can do one hand at a time. So you place your elbow on the chair and a little bit sideways you turn as if you're looking to the side and move back. This gives an even deeper stretch to the upper back. When it comes to the shoulder, any kind of shoulder movement, right? Shoulder circles, whether it is up and down, to the sideways, that helps. One more thing that you can do, and that's going to be for the hips, is using the chair again, because you've been sitting for a long time. These lunge stretches are extremely helpful. You place one foot up on the chair, you can use the chair for support, or you can take your hands up, get some nice activity going in the upper body. That's also fairly helpful. Continuing with the legs. And now when we talk about women, this is one of the postures that I highly recommend, which is called the figure 4 stretch. So you place your right ankle above the left knee and you come into this nice parallel position. It may be here for many to begin with, so that's fine. You stick with that, you slowly, continue your progress, and then whenever you're ready, the progression is you come all the way down. And then you place your hands down on the ground. So this is again really good for women. This is also good for men. But make sure that anytime you're doing a stretch, you do it on both sides. When it comes to the reproductive issues that women are facing, there is a breathing technique which is called 4:8:8, which is something I would highly recommend for women to include into their lifestyle, because it teaches them breath retention. It teaches them how to increase your exhalation. So what 4:8:8 means is, you breathe in for a count of 4, you hold your breath for a count of 8, and you exhale for a count of 8. So those are a few more, and if we go step by step, you're going to activate your toes and ankles, you're going to work on your knees, you're going to work on your hips, you work on the spine, and one of the very good ways to work on the spine is cat-cow, wherein you inhale and you look up, you draw the chest out, and as you exhale, you round the spine. Inhale and exhale. So getting to move your spine during the day, this is again easy to do on the chair, is very, very essential. You can do it up to 2 to 3 times. From the spine, we come to the shoulders. I shared a stretch there. We also now come to the neck. And very good stretch for the neck is take one hand behind and draw the ear to the shoulder. To help you along a little, you can also place your hand above the head. Lastly, we come to the wrist, which again, a lot of people develop wrist issues because of excessive computer use. And one, we have the simple exercise wherein you open and close the fingers and make a tight fist. Then you have those wrist circles, but most importantly, you have wrist flexion and extension, wherein you point the fingers up and then you point the fingers down. Then you follow this up with pranayama and meditation. So that's broadly how you would do. Just to repeat, you start with the toes, ankles, knees, hips, spine, shoulders, neck, and wrists.
This is amazing, Namita. I think, the few takeaways is that one, you exercise every part of your body from the toes to your head.
Yes.
That's one.
Yes.
Second is that, what I understand is that when you do the pose, there has to be a counter pose. Like you said, if you do it from one side, you have to do it from the other side as well.
Yeah.
And which is what I noticed around when you were doing the cat pose and breathing in and breathing out.
Yeah.
I noticed that as well. So any tips that you would want to share for our viewers?
Yes.
Yes.
I think I think the number one tip I want to share is that you don't have to be flexible to do yoga. A lot of people feel like if they're not flexible, they cannot do yoga. A lot of times people think that a pose has to look a certain way in order for it to be right. And every other way to do it is wrong. Or that if your hands can't reach the toes, then the posture is wrong. So I want people to let go of their thinking, because that's not true. In yoga, it doesn't matter how you look, it matters how you're feeling or what are the sensations. For me now, I won't feel any sensation in my hamstrings till I reach the ground or touch the toes. For someone else, they may feel a sensation in the hamstring with just a 15-degree forward bend rather than the full flexion. And that's what matters. You tune into the sensation and you breathe through that. You don't force your body to go all the way down. That's irrelevant. And I think that's an important message I want everybody to keep, that don't worry if you're not super flexible, you will still get the same benefits of yoga if you're holding your pose, tuning into the sensations and breathing through it.
Is there anyone who should not be doing yoga?
It's not about who should not be doing yoga. It's about certain postures may not be suitable for some people. Somebody with glaucoma should not do inversions or forward bends. So people who have high blood pressure may not, should avoid bending forward too much and then suddenly rising up. So there are these precautions that come with different postures individually. People with knee issues should be careful when they do seated postures such as Padmasana. And people with neck issues should avoid Sarvangasana or shoulder stand. So it's individual based, and that the teacher will be able to guide you.
Great. Namitha, thank you so much for your time, because this is a super useful session, because one, you have proven that people with hectic lifestyle can still find to do that little bit to keep themselves not just physically fit, but mentally calm.
Yeah.
Second is, I mean, you're taking it to the corporate world and making them aware that how, this few minutes of their employees' time can actually lead to a higher productivity. And you've also shared few things that can easily be done. I mean, the kind of postures you just showed us are not something difficult for anyone to do. And it was done in less than a minute.
Yeah.
And I see that you are taking upon you through the modern channels like Instagram, etc., to connect with people and encourage them to try and take on this as a part of lifestyle. Yes. Amazing work. Thank you so much for your time, Namitha. It has been such a pleasure speaking with you.
Likewise, Arbinda. Thank you so much. It was wonderful to chat with you today.